Hey friends, and welcome to my bathroom. Let me explain. So we're in the middle of moving. I moved houses this weekend, so every other room in my house is full of boxes. So this was the only one I could find that had a door that shut, had decent lighting, and didn't look like a storage container. So here we are. I promise I'm not on the toilet. Okay, so let's talk about the why behind Regathering, because that's what this video is about. So over the past few months, year, I've been asking people, what is it you miss about getting together for in-person gatherings that you've missed during the pandemic? And the cool thing is that the thing that people have missed about in-person gatherings is other people. They've missed singing with people, they've missed talking with people, they miss laughing with people, they've missed praying with people, they've missed experiencing God with people, they miss talking about the teaching and sharing their lives with other people. If anything, this season has felt really lonely for a lot of us. And so, what I haven't heard is I haven't heard a bunch of people say like, oh, I really miss sitting together with other people in a theater watching a teaching on a screen. Because that's the part of our pre-pandemic Sunday gatherings that has translated pretty well. We were always watching Bruxy on a screen. Now we're just watching him on a smaller screen and we're in our pajamas. So that hasn't really changed, and which is good, because the fact of the matter is that the church is not supposed to be a place where we just come and receive content. As great as that teaching might be, and as important as good teaching and as life-giving as it can be, and it helps us to grow, helps us to be better followers of Jesus, helps us to love other people better and think differently. The teaching is not what the church is about. It's not the primary thing that church is about. Church is supposed to be a community of people who get together, do life together, centered around Jesus. And so we don't want to be, here at Meeting House Ottawa, we don't want to be a church that's content-centered. We want to be a church that's community-centered. That's the thing that we miss, is we miss community. We miss doing life together. We miss being a part of that and seeing people and experiencing God together. And so as I've talked to people about, well, okay, if that's what we miss, then where do we want to go? What kind of church do we want to be in the future? It's like, oh, the things that come up are all community-centered. It's, oh, well, we want to be a church that feels like family, where we can laugh together and we can eat together and we can cry together. We want to be a church that helps each other grow through hearing from each other. There's so many wonderful people in our local community. We'd love to hear what they have to offer and allow them to share their gifts with us and us to be able to share our gifts with them. What would that look like? We want to be able to serve our community well together. We want to serve our city, our neighbors. We want to be known as a church that's invested in our neighborhoods and that loves our city well. And that's something we do together. We want to be a place for the whole family where kids and teens and adults and seniors can all come together and aren't just off in their own little programs, but are experiencing God together. Not that anything's, that we're going to continue with Kid Max and youth; those are still happening. But what it would look like for it to feel like we gather all together. I've heard so much about, we obviously have a ton of foodies here in Ottawa, and people saying like, I would love to get together as a community and eat together. That's what I miss, eating together. I want us to be a community that shares meals together. Potlucks, things like that. What if we could do that? What if we could try different things? What if we could really allow what God's putting on our heart here in Ottawa and make space for all of that? And make space to try different things. And we don't always have to get it right, and we may get it wrong, and that's okay, because we're family and we're in this together and we're a community. And we did a whole series on this, a local teaching series on this a few months ago, about being a community that cares for ourselves, that cares for others, that cares for each other. And that's really the heart of what it is that we want to be. And so as we were thinking ahead to Regathering, we said, okay, well then we want to make that shift to being a church that when we get together, our focus is not just on the content, but it's on community. And how can we make community a more central part of our gatherings together? And so we thought, begin to think a little bit about the impact that the space has on that, because the space that we meet in says a lot about what it is that we intend to do there. And so as great as Lansdowne theaters have been, movie theaters are a place that you go to receive content. You go there, sit in your seat, the screen turns on, and you watch the content and absorb it. They are not great spaces for community. Everything's in rows, it's dark, you can't see the people around you, you're not supposed to talk. There's not great spaces for hanging out afterwards. There's no place to share food unless you want to share your popcorn with the person next to you. And it's not even a great home base from which we can go and serve outside of our church, serve our neighbors from that space, because we only have access to it for a very limited time each week. So we began to think, okay, well, maybe that means that we need to think about finding a different space. And so we did some research, and Gwendolyn Barr from our community, one of our elders, had suggested that she'd been in this Riverside United space before and suggested we look into it. And that's a long story about how that all worked out, but it turns out that this is perfect timing for Riverside United for us to be joining in and using their space. And I'll tell that story another time. But that Riverside United space, it's not a perfect space. It's definitely older than the Lansdowne Theater, and we'll be sharing it with another church and some other community events that happen in there too. But there's some cool stuff. So the main space that you meet in, all linoleum floors, all movable chairs, and which means that, you don't have to set everything up in rows to face the front if you don't want to. You can absolutely do rows, and everybody can look at the front, and we can do music, and we can show the teaching on screen. But if we want to turn those chairs around and turn those rows into circles and have conversation, we can do that. If we want to pull out some tables and have a potluck, we can do that in that space as we gather together on Sundays. If we want to put the band at the center or teach from the middle, and have everybody gather in a circle around and do it and try some different ways of gathering together as a community, we can do that. And that's always been a part of our DNA, is to introduce people to different ways of connecting to God and different spiritual practices. The Reflection Theater has been a part of our church for years now, and we want to continue that. It's shown up in our prayer podcast and different things that we've done in our online gatherings, and we want to continue that as we move back to physical gatherings as well. Another cool thing about the Riverside United space is, there's a kitchen that's right there in the building. And I can just picture us as part of our gatherings, there being a time where a team of people go into the kitchen and they make sandwiches for a place like Restoring Hope. Or we serve, or prep food for potlucks or all kinds of things. There's a yard with gardens in the back where Riverside United grows food and donates it to the food bank. And they're totally open to us building some gardens of our own and growing food alongside them that we can give back to the community. There's play spaces outside for the kids to be able to play outside as part of their Kid Max along with their classrooms. The space is completely accessible. And this is something that came up a lot as we were talking about the values of our community, is that we want to be a place that is completely accessible, a church that's accessible for everybody, and that includes everyone, and that makes space for everyone to belong. And the theaters didn't allow for that. There was many obstacles for people with physical disabilities to get in, and when they got in, they were in the back row, and when everybody stood up, they, as one person said, they got to see nothing but a wall of butts. And they couldn't lead from the front. They couldn't do that, and we did many workarounds to try and accommodate. But again, when you're always working around, you go, well, is this ideal? So it's all one level. There's no elevators. It's fully accessible, and the one space in Riverside that isn't accessible, which is the platform, they actually have a contract to make that accessible within the next few months or so. And so total accessibility, which is going to be great. What else is great about Riverside? There's free parking, so you don't have to worry about getting a parking validated. But there's also going to be some things that we have to figure out too. So the busing there is not as great as it is to a place like Lansdowne. It's a little bit more limited. But we've already thought about some solutions that are actually lean into our value of being community oriented, What if we had a rideshare program where people from different neighborhoods could say, yeah, we've got an extra seat or two in our car, and we could take somebody, and somebody in their neighborhood could say, yeah, I need a ride, and you can partner people together. And there's apps that do that, and we say, hey, that way people are already building community on their way to church, to the church gathering. That's pretty cool. So that's the whys. Why would we think about leaving Lansdowne? Why would we even, be like, okay, well, if we're going to leave Lansdowne, go to a space where it's like, okay, we're not going to be able to meet at 10 a.m. in the morning. We're going to move our gathering times to the afternoon. Like, that seems like a bit of a hassle. And yeah, it probably may create some complications for some people, and we all may have to create some new rhythms. But on the other hand, we do get to keep sleeping in on Sundays, which will be pretty great. But we think that those changes are worth it because our heart, our vision is to be a church that is centered on community, and then being a community that's centered on Jesus. And we can talk about the theology of how that works. But if we put gathering together as community as the center of what we do on Sundays and not just receiving content, then it's like, oh, this space allows us to do that so much better, and we can make these changes, and that's going to allow us to be the type of church that we really want to be. It allows us to be a community that better cares for each other and cares for others. Right in our Sunday morning gatherings, not just where we can come and talk about it on Sundays and say, okay, we need to go do this somewhere else, but we can do a bunch more of those things right when we get together in person already. I'm excited about that. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm really excited about the possibilities that are there. And I hope you are too. And we're going to need you to be excited because there's work to be done. And this isn't going to be a thing where it's me and, our local Regathering team who plans it all and just invites you to show up and receive what it is that we've put together and then be able to go home. That's content-based gatherings again. No, we're community-based gatherings. And so we all together are going to come together and create these gatherings together. And so there's roles for you to play, whether, in all sorts of different ways. And so there's actually going to be an email coming out a little bit later this week that's going to have some opportunities for you to sign up for, say, hey, I'm interested in being involved in making this happen, and being part of the teams and filling, and bringing my gifts and my skills to helping make this community happen. And so we're excited about that. And so I hope to hear from you because we need to do all this together. That's what it is to be a community. That's how we care for each other, is we serve each other and love each other well by gathering together and serving each other and volunteering and putting in the work to create community for each other. So I'm sure this is probably raising a bunch of questions for you, and you probably would like to hear some more info. And I haven't went into detail about a bunch of stuff. I'm not talking about COVID protocols here or anything like that. This is just about the why. And so we'll be talking a little bit more about some of that stuff. So this Thursday night, instead of summer home church, we're going to be doing a Regathering Q&A, 6:30 p.m. on Thursday night. The link is in the email, and you can come and join us. I'll be talking a little bit more about our plans with a little bit more detail and making space to answer questions and have some conversation, and we can kind of unpack this and hopefully get you even more excited about Regathering on October the 3rd. Yes. But yeah, so I hope you're excited, and I hope you grasp this. It's like, okay, why? What kind of church do we want to be? And we've talked about this, being a community that cares and being a community. And so we want to start we want the focus of our gatherings to be being a community. And so you're going to see everything that we're doing and thinking about is with that in mind. How can we put being a community at the center of what we're doing? And then, of course, always being a community that's centered on Jesus. We're not just a community for the sake of being a community, but we're a community that's centered on the teachings of Jesus, the life of Jesus, the presence of Jesus. And that when we gather together as a community, we believe that we experience the love of Jesus in a way that is meaningful and powerful. And it's life-giving. And so, we're excited to get back to that. We've been doing it in digital spaces. We've been doing it in smaller ways. But that idea of getting all together in community is, really exciting. So that's kind of the vision for what we're trying to do is putting community at the center of our gatherings going forward. And we're going to try a bunch of stuff. Some of it may or may not work. And I hope, that we're going to trial and error some stuff and So be patient with us, but we're going to be doing it together, as I said earlier. So we'll be patient with each other. And there's lots to learn and things to figure out. But again, I think we can do this together and become the type of community that we really long to be here in Ottawa, and that and see what God wants to do with that. So yeah, I hope you'll join me in this adventure. Looking forward to October the 3rd. Looking forward to talking to some of you more on Thursday night as we unpack this a little bit further. And yeah, that's it for me. I'm going to go get back to packing some boxes now. But you'll be hearing more from us, from me and the team, with more specifics on how all of this is going to look as we go through. This is just kind of the early, we're letting you know that, hey, this is the date, this is the this is the when, this is the where, and I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about the why. But the actual, you'll get more information on all the things about how it's all going to work and all that as we get closer to October the 3rd. But just really want to put that on your calendars. Hope that you get excited and hope you have an understanding of, okay, well, there's some changes happening. Why are they happening? And they're happening so that we can better be community together, better be a community that cares for each other, for others, and even for ourselves. All right, take care, friends. I'm gonna go pack the rest of my house now.